This is the video for the Try It section of Lesson 25, Not Gone, Not Forgotten. In this lesson, you compose a short worksheet selection procedure that uses the send keys method to automatically expand the drop-down list of a cell containing data validation. So what we are talking about is, here is a worksheet, and do not adjust the settings on your monitor. I purposely set the zoom on this sheet to 150% so we could see the data validation cells a little bit easier. And what we have going on is that in cells B2 and D4 of this worksheet, I have a couple of cells, those two cells that have data validation assigned to them. And there's a drop-down list here, as you can tell by when you see me selecting these cells. There's this drop-down arrow. The idea for this code is, with the send keys method, to have this drop-down arrow drop down or show the items in this list without the user having to grab their mouse and click the arrow. So as soon as the cell with the data validation list is selected, this list will automatically drop down for them as a convenience. And so that will be a worksheet level event, because we're going to be selecting different cells, and whichever cell at the time is found to have data validation assigned to it, then the drop-down arrow will be executed. Because this is a worksheet level event, we're going to put it in the worksheets module. So come on down here to the sheet tabs, and sheet 1 is what we're on. I'm going to right click the sheet tab and left click to select view code. We're in the module of that sheet 1 tab already, which is great, and I'm going to click the object fields drop down list to select worksheet, and lo and behold, the worksheet selection change event is the one that is by default what Microsoft and VBA produce for you in the module when you click this worksheet object. And it turns out that this is the exact event that we are interested in. Had it not been, as you might recall, you would have come on over here to the procedure drop-down list and chosen whichever event you were interested in. But we are interested in the selection change event. And what I want to do here is to only monitor one cell at a time. I am not going to want to accommodate trying to drop 100 or 1,000 data validation lists if someone were to select a range of 1,000 cells, for example. So to guard against that eventuality or possibility, I'm going to say target.cells.count. If they are greater than 1, that means I'm only going to allow one cell to be selected at a time for the procedure to kick in. Otherwise, I'm going to exit the sub, and that is how you express that to VBA there. The next step is to declare a cell as variant, but it's going to be called DV cell. And what the purpose of this is I'm going to use a cell declared as a variant object to be the guinea pig to basically evaluate as each cell is selected. This DV cell will be what is referred to here, and I'm going to say on error resume next, because the type of drop-down list, the type of data validation might not be a drop-down list. It might be some other validation that's established for that cell, or the cell might not even have any data validation assigned to it. So what I'm going to say is on error resume next, and I'm going to say DV cell equals, and now I'm going to use the target range item as has been specified up here in the arguments for the selection change event. If target.validation.type. So what this means is I'm using a range type looking variable, but it's declared as a variant because I'm going to say, okay, if this cell that I'm selecting has some kind of validation type, then, but it might not, and that is why the on error resume next is here. The next statement that goes after that is if ERR dot number equals 0, then send keys, and you put them in quotes, as you might have noticed from the book, and the percent is the equivalent of alt, and then in this curly bracket here we're going to put down down, and that means the arrow down key. And then I'm going to put a special what has become to me a special optional item in here where you see where it says wait. I'm going to put true here because this will mean that the application will wait until this procedure has executed, and then it will then move on to the next line of code and not cause any havoc with your computer. Every now and then there is a numlock reversal where if you have numlock set to true, so that on your keypad on your keyboard you're going to press the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. keys, and they will all produce those numbers on your worksheet. But sometimes numlock gets reversed with using send keys, and to accommodate that possibility I put the comma here and use the optional true selection for the wait argument. That's W-A-I-T, as you can see right here. Anyway, moving on. After we clear the error, we are done with the code. And that is the extent of how you can have the drop-down list if it is a data validated cell with a drop-down list, and that's what the error bypass monitors. Then we can use this code to have these cells automatically drop down. So I'm going to start by meandering around the cell here, and there's no data validation here, but I'm going to arrow up to cell B2, and when I do, you'll see that the action did kick in for this drop down arrow to show the list. And I can simply, if I don't want to have any selection made, I'm going to press the escape key and then continue on my worksheet travels, and over here is data validation in this list here in cell D4 that has dropped down. And if I want to select a name like Tom, why not? That will be entered into the cell like that. So that is how you can assign send keys to do a job like that, to pull down to enact this downward arrow data validation list. And it is done, as I'm going to go back into the sheet module, with the code that uses a variant type variable to do the dirty work of seeing which kind of validation type, if any, is in that cell. And this is the syntax in the quotes with basically the alt down keys that will execute that drop down arrow for the data validation list.